Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are here once again for another episode of the Friday Night Movie Club. We're at 89 episodes here, and we have a very special one here tonight because we're talking about yet another Aliens film. And I think my first line in my review for Bounding in the Comics is that there's 7 Alien films, but I'm pretty sure most people are going to have to try to remember at least 4 of them because they exist, but not a lot of people remember them, and that's kind of where we are right now. But I'm joined here tonight with my good buddy, Rob Mata. How you doing tonight, Rob?
Pretty good. I keep... there are these movies that come out where I'm like, hey, this has a chance to be good, and then I'm disappointed and I remember it's Hollywood. So I don't know, I maybe have short-term memory loss because every time I hold out hope for something, it just ends up disappointing me. So but that's just the state of things in 2024.
Yeah, and unfortunately, there's a lot of room for disappointment this year. Now, I mean, it's a weird year because we're almost like 3/4 of the way done with this year. And what I will say is that the summer did pick up a lot of better movies than we were. Like we were in a much better position now than I think we were at like back in June, where we were like, wow, there's like only maybe 1, maybe 2 movies I could consider good, and then the rest are kind of trash. Like the quality did pick up here. Like I still think that there's a few other movies out there that can be potentially good. A lot of room to grow here, but yeah, the bad has definitely set itself apart from this year. And I think we're gonna have a very interesting discussion about this movie. I think we're gonna be split with the most part, but obviously later on we do have a couple of guests who are going to be joining us here. They're not here just yet, but I'm going to actually just this question first, and then we can talk about a couple of other movie related things that happened this week. Do you think that this summer has helped improve the overall quality of the movies that have come out this year? Like, are there a couple of films that have stuck out to you that at least made it more seemingly more tolerable than it used to be?
I mean, there's been gems here and there. There's been things that kind of surprised. But if you look at the overall box office, if you look at the overall business, it's kids movies, family movies, and then Deadpool 3.
Yeah.
Because even Twisters, which had a great opening weekend, just kind of died, and it's already on video on. It's going to be coming to streaming here before the end of August. So it's just like, who knows? And even movies that I really liked, the Bike Riders didn't do great at the box office. Kind of went to Peacock within 6 weeks of its release. You know what I mean? It was a pretty quick turnaround time. So, I mean, even stuff like that. I mean, Civil War kind of did good. It stuck around, and I really like Longlegs, that horror movie by Osgood Perkins, the son of Anthony Perkins from Psycho. And I mean, that was a that just blew me away. I was incredibly surprised by that movie. And that doesn't happen with horror movies in general. So that was great. And, Maxine, I thought was a lot of fun. I just really enjoyed that movie, even if the third act was kind of messy. So, yeah, I mean, I'm grateful. There have been those movies that kind of do surprise you and do kind of catch your attention. But, so I was anticipating this year to be bad. So I've kind of slightly been surprised, and I'm not. It's strange that I'm not as negative, or
Yeah.
maybe I don't know. Maybe I've just accepted a certain level of quality at this point. I don't know.
Yeah, like I said, for me, like I think this movies that definitely pick things up. Kill was a really, really good surprise this year. You can tell that a lot of more budget went into that one than some other Indian movies that are out there. The Bike Riders is obviously a pretty good surprise. I personally enjoyed Unsung Hero. I think that's probably like a movie that'll probably be on my top 5-ish list by the time we get to the end of the year that I'll probably have and nobody else has, but I thought that was really good. The Sing Sing movie with I can't remember the dude's name, black dude, gay dude. I literally can't. He's been in like a whole bunch of stuff, but that movie was actually like pretty good, even though you can kind of tell that it's more of a Oscar bait type of film, but it was well done, and there was very few well done movies that we had this year. Then of course, like Maxine was pretty solid. Hitman was I think the film that you kind of recommended. It was actually a much more funner film than I thought it was going to be. Like I saw the trailer for it, I thought it can go either way, but it was a much more enjoyable movie. So we have had much better movies. I still think that we're maybe 2, maybe 3 movies away, like really good movies from me saying that this is a pretty solid year. I think it's improved a lot, but I still think that we're probably compared to last year, we're definitely made a step back. I'm trying to think it was the last like great year for movies, and it's kind of been a rough go thing since what COVID happened. I mean, we all talk about how great 2019 was, but it feels like since then we haven't had anything that like really truly matched that in quality. And like I said, 2019 just so happened to have guys like Scorsese doing a movie, Quentin Tarantino doing a film, the Todd Phillips Joker movie, a few other movies that were really, really good. I think even Ford versus Ferrari was a great movie that year, but you haven't had that output since then, and it's been kind of a struggle. But quick little shout out, just real quick to you guys joining us here. We are live on Rumble, Twitch, and on YouTube tonight. So I see Vanya joining us here as well. Leslie Tarkin is joining us, enjoying our intro. And we got a bunch of people joining us on Rumble too. So a quick little shout out to you guys. But as we're waiting for people to trickle in, I got a couple things I want to show you before we actually talk about the movie. I guess the first thing that we'll cover, and we'll talk about this a little bit more on the Barroom podcast next week, but I do want to get your thoughts on this one. There's been a lot of discord over the last couple of weeks regarding Blake Lively, and so this whole story has just been spiraling, I guess you could say is the best way to describe this story, because they came out with a film that I kind of talked about on last week's show. It was It Ends With Us, and I kind of gave you the rundown about my general thoughts of the movie. It's a very heavy-handed movie, a very ham-fisted film in a lot of aspects. I can understand the guy who directed this film and also starred in it wants it to be kind of like, one of those conversation starters about domestic violence. So I can see where his head and his heart was at. I just don't think the overall project was that very good. Immediately after I did that review of that film, there's been a lot of shit throwing back and forth regarding all the people involved in this movie, and it's basically Blake Lively's side and Justin Beliti's side, and neither side is looking too great out of it all. But a lot of people are using this as an opportunity to really throw Blake Lively under the bus, justifiably so. So Justin here, as you know, is the director and the star of this film. And they were doing media runs over the last week promoting this movie. And you could tell just by the way that this movie was being promoted that Justin really wanted this film to be kind of like this beacon on the domestic violence issue. And while Blake Lively really didn't care too much about it, like she didn't really have like the emotional aspect, you could tell that he was the one who was emotionally invested and not really her, which is kind of weird considering the fact that this is her first film in like 4 years. So you think that there'll be a little extra oomph here, but this is where we've starting to got the news back and forth, in the sheets, as the wrestling term there, that Blake Lively apparently has been feuding with Justin for quite some time. She felt like that he tried to body shame her during the filming of this movie. The counter story to that is that, well, Justin has his history of back problems, so he wanted to know exactly how much Blake Lively weighs to order to train properly for the role, so that he didn't further injure himself. A lot of people were really taking his side on that whole issue. Then apparently, after the film was already shot, Blake Lively used her star power along with the star power of Ryan Reynolds to essentially go over Justin's head to try to get her own cut of the movie to essentially go over Justin here. Now, apparently, there is a cut of her for this film, and they put both cuts together. Hers fared significantly worse than Justin's movie, which strikes at me. It wasn't a very good movie to begin with, but it was that much worse than what we got in theaters. I can only imagine what Blake's one turned it into. And then in the course of here, a lot of people have basically come out and said that, hey, Blake is really a difficult person to work with behind the stage. Her and Ryan Reynolds are not good people, let's just put it that way. She's very, very unlikable. She even got into it with a few journalists over the course of the last few weeks. One, she took a shot at like a pregnant woman, or a journalist who was making the fact that, hey, you're pregnant and whatnot. She took like a pot shot at her. Turns out the journalist that she was talking to apparently has some kind of condition where she can't have kids. So that was kind of like the worst possible time to take that shot at her. So not great PR for Miss Lively, and I think it's getting exposed just how nasty of a person she truly is. So I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on this, because you've been following this a little bit over the last few days too. What is kind of your take on this whole Justin and Blake situation? Because it feels like everyone in Hollywood is siding with Blake based on who she's close to, which is obviously like the Ryan Reynolds and the Taylor Swift, while everyone who's seemingly kind of outside of that bubble is taking Justin's side. What's kind of your view on this?
Yeah, I do think that Blake Lively has done a great job of hiding her talent deficiencies,
Mm-hmm.
because she was in Gossip Girl, and then I mean, she's had a few roles like Age of Adeline, and I'm trying to think of that movie that Paul Feig directed with The Simple Favor with her
Yeah,
and Anna
so
Kendrick, um, and she's mostly known as the wife of Ryan Reynolds. I mean, even as an actress, even as a performer, her skill set is relatively limited. It's like, oh, it's I'm known as a pretty woman. That's literally her like MO. So I kind of find it interesting. Kind of, this is something you don't do. This goes back to the old studio system. You
mm-hmm.
don't go over the director's head to try. I mean, as powerful as stars are, as much money as they command, as much they can get people fired. That's one thing, but like
Mm-hmm.
the movie's already shot. So like you're basically going above the director's head to be like, "Hey, I want you to, basically put together my cut." I don't have any skills as an editor. I'm just an actress, but I think I have the clout to be able to ask for this, et cetera, blah blah blah. So that is strike one. So automatically it's not looking good. Now there are two cuts. Oh, yours is exponentially worse than the director's and the star. You know what I mean? Like she doesn't have a leg to stand on. Even argumentatively. It just looks bad on multiple fronts. And now it's like, okay, she's friends with powerful people. She's kind of getting her PR team to make Justin look bad. I don't know. I don't know anything about this guy. And I mean, this is not material that really appeals to me personally. I've heard from people who I respect about the book it's based on that it's pretty much trash. It's just kind of like feminist garbage. Even for the material that it is, even trying to highlight domestic violence and, something empowering, it just is kind of trite garbage. But anyway, that's from people I trust, kind of in the literary world. But yeah, I don't know. Blake Lively just seems kind of like a shallow, petty, bitchy actress who doesn't have a whole
Yeah.
lot of talent, and kind of wanted to be the face of this. And it's kind of good that she wasn't, because you know him getting to release his cut, and look, it's made money, like it's doing well financially. So it's weird that this drama's coming out. It just seemed like
Mm-hmm.
he was a little tight-lipped in interviews where he kind of didn't want to say like, yeah, if there's a sequel, I think Blake is good to do that, and I'll do a project I'm interested, basically saying I'm not really interested in doing any kind of a sequel. So, and when you're the
Yeah,
director
especially
and
with her.
the co-star at the very least, that is not a good sign. So that kind of got people to ask more and more questions, and now here we are.
Yeah, and like I said, it's just it's weird how we always bring this up, but Hollywood's like high school mentality starts to rear its ugly head, especially with situations like this. 'Cause this is really what it is. It's just high school nonsense. All the stars of the movie have apparently unfollowed Justin as if somehow he did something wrong. And like I said, everyone who's reading this whole situation, it's like, well, Justin really didn't do like, well, what's the deal here? Like I said, it's not about what Justin did or didn't do. It's about who Blake Lively is, and Blake Lively has bigger connections with people in Hollywood and people in the entertainment industry. So because they want to stay on the good side of the cool kids club, we have to essentially stay on the same side. Because hey, if we burn our bridge with Blake Lively, then we're gonna burn our bridge with Ryan Reynolds, or we may burn our bridge with Taylor Swift, and I can't have that. So sorry, Justin, you're gonna be the one that's gonna get dumped out here. And then Justin, objectively, whether you agree with the movie being good or not, he was the only one who actually cared about the message of this movie out of anyone else who worked on this film. It's like you could tell that he took an extra, a sense of passion about this film, and he really wanted this to hit home with a lot of people. And while everyone else basically like didn't care, like everyone else is gonna go back to like their mansion parties or like their New York City party when this is all said and done. This means absolutely nothing to them. And like I said before, and I mentioned this earlier this week too, when it comes to Blake Lively, I think people are vastly overrating her star power and her drawing power, because if you look at the films that she's done, especially since what Gossip Girl, because obviously Gossip Girl was where she got like her big break, where she blew up. But outside of that, she doesn't have any films that I would consider to be good, let alone great. Like I said, the only ones I can say is somewhat decent was she did the Shark movie that was like 8 years ago, which was all right. A Simple Favor. Really, I mean, you really have to, there's parts about it that's pretty good. There's also parts about it that are extremely suspect. Let's just put it like that too. So I mean, it really depends on which side of the fence you land on that movie. Outside of that, there's nothing else that would be like, oh yeah, she's a great actress. Honestly, I'm just gonna be completely straight with you. I don't even think that she's that hot either. Like I know that that's
Yeah.
another thing with like a lot of guys, but it's like she's not my type like at all. It's just no.
Yeah, no, what's funny is her best performance is probably as the crack whore in The Town, who's like Ben Affleck's ex-girlfriend, and like she's the one that gets caught up with like John Hamm, who plays the FBI agent, and that's literally like the best performance. And it's still a terrible performance where she tries to do like a Southie Boston accent, and like she's smoking cigarettes and doing coke in the bathroom, and it's just a trashy performance, like whatever. But literally that performance is probably the best thing that she's done, just because again, I'm amazed that like whoever her PR and agent and manager are deserve a pat on the back off of off the jobs that she gets, because again, she's been in a handful of movies. And again, she's known really as the wife of Ryan Reynolds. That's what she's famous for. And she's friends with Taylor Swift. Who gives a fuck? I mean, I guess there are people that do. I guess there really are a lot of people that do, but it's like, why that matters to Hollywood? Like Taylor Swift has nothing to do with Hollywood. You know what I mean? I mean, she has. I'm sure she was in like a few movies herself or whatever, but it's like she really has no ties to that town. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know why that would matter, or why you would, I have to be on Blake. I mean, this just seems like a petty, fracas. It's just like, okay, like let's stir some shit up because, we have famous friends, basically.
Like I said, I think there's a lot of actresses in Hollywood that are completely overestimating their worth to the industry on a multitude of levels. We talked about it with Rachel Ziegler earlier this week too. It's like talk about someone who's severely overestimating their worth. Someone who literally has not drawn a dime, to use like the old Jarrett line there. It's like literally has not drawn a dime. Could not draw money if you gave her a green crayon.
But even the talented actresses like and I know they're annoying, but for instance, Jennifer Lawrence and Brie Larson, like they're not getting roles right now. Like I haven't heard anything about them setting up future roles or what they're going to be in, and it's just like, you guys kind of overestimated your value. And look, Jennifer Lawrence, I think she won an Oscar. She was nominated for another one, but but that only takes you so far. And if in interviews, she comes off as someone that's incredibly difficult and bitchy and antisocial. So, and none of that really plays in terms of having a fan base. Usually people get, sour on that kind of stuff. And I mean, like Amsterdam, I know we're talking about Taylor Swift being in movies. Amsterdam came out when was that? A couple years ago now? Was it last year?
Yeah, it
It wasn't last year.
No, it was like 2022, if I believe. Right?
Yeah. So, and that was another one that was just kind of awful. So, yeah. The actresses in Hollywood are not doing great lately.
No, and something tells me it's probably not going to get much better for them at this point in time. So it's probably going to get far worse than that. But outside of that, I wanted to get to one more outlook here. It's kind of like the box office of this year and kind of where we're set up for the 2024 year goes, because Deadpool and Wolverine just passed $1.1 billion worldwide, making it the highest grossing rated R movie ever, which surpasses Joker that came out 5 years earlier. Now, Joker 2 comes out later this year. I don't know if Joker 2 is going to have enough juice that the first Joker movie had, because I don't know about you. Have you felt like there's been a lot of real, true, genuine buzz about that film? Because I know the first one got carried a lot because for some reason there's a lot of critics out there making it seem like if you go watch Joker, you're going to commit like mass suicide or something like that. It made no sense, the hype going into that movie, but it did propel it to becoming a billion-dollar film. Do you feel that same way with Joker, or you feel like that this one's probably just trying to ride the coattails of Lady Gaga at this point?
Yeah, this any buzz that's coming out about that movie feels generated from the studio itself, from Warner Brothers, because I can't imagine it. I think there's a large section of the population that went to see Joker that does not want to see a Joker sequel musical, especially with Lady Gaga. So I think that's a big deterrent to overcome.
And I will say this. So here's what we're looking at as far as the box office goes right now. The number one movie of the year so far has been Inside Out 2, which I think is a film that both of us skipped for the simple fact that it's a kids movie. So it's like what's the draw here? Like, I can watch a kids movie, give you my opinion, but just know that I'm not the target audience. So I try to not watch those films. I did end up eventually watching Harold and a Purple Crayon, only because I knew that there was like a lot of I don't say turmoil, but obviously Zachary Levi hasn't exactly had the best run over the last 3 years when it comes to movies and its box office return. I saw the movie. It's a decent film. Like, you can go take your kids to go see it. It's relatively harmless, and it's not it's not going to make any waves one way or another. It's just kind of a decent film. That's all it really is. But Inside Out 2 is like the big one that's been making a lot of money with Disney right now. The Deadpool Wolverine has been doing a lot as well. You had Despicable Me 4, which is another movie that I have intentionally stepped away from. I mean, I'm not gonna bother watching my time here. Dune 2 it's a movie that it feels like we just completely forgot about, but at the moment it's the fourth highest drawing movie of the year. But it really did just come and went, and I haven't heard much anyone talk about it. Even the people who actually like that film, like that's a movie that feels like it's almost been memory hold in a sense. Do you feel that way too?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. I listen, I like things about Dune Part 2. I'll probably watch it. Of course, want to watch the original and then watch Part 2, so that's going to be a lot of fun for me. But so I am a little surprised that nobody's been talking about it, because again, I think when it's all said and done, just because there's not much out there, it'll win or at least be up for the awards for like cinematography and the technical aspects of it and the soundtrack. And even if it doesn't, even if Austin Butler doesn't get Best Supporting Actor for that, performance, that villainous performance. So, but yeah, it did kind of get lost in the shuffle of 2024. People would rather talk about Furiosa, which didn't make nearly anything remotely close to Dune Part 2.
That movie crashed out so hard.
Yeah, I just don't get it. What people's fascination with that is, but
like I said, that they propped that up to be their girl power movie of 2024. Like, literally no one cared. And we mentioned it when we reviewed the movies. Like, I think you guys were severely overestimating just how many people actually liked Fury Road several years ago. Like, if you go back and you watch the numbers, and you like, it wasn't that popular of a movie then. And I think a lot of people gaslit themselves into thinking that it was like one of the greatest movies ever made. So when the second one came out, which is a prequel that wasn't even starring either Tom Hardy or Charlize Theron, it's like, what's the draw of this movie that the last one was great? You thought that people were going to check that out? That was a big misfire on their end. But
Yep.
Outside of that, we have what Twisters at number 5, which we've talked about Twisters. It's another middle of the road type of film. Godzilla minus Kong, basically same thing. Kung Fu Panda 4, which I legitimately forgot that movie had even came out. Like I didn't see it, so like I said, there's no context there. Then you have Bad Boys Ride and Die, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and then A Quiet Place Day One. And those are your top 10 highest grossing movies of the year so far. So that's all the movies that have made the most money so far this year. And I gotta be honest with you, if I'm looking throughout the entire list, there's not one great movie in that list like at all. If we're talking about at least the popular ones that people are like going to watch here, like I'm seeing like a horde of just like 2 out of 5 films at best.
Yeah, I'll be completely honest with you. That top 10 list, I think I've only seen maybe half of it. Because like it's like all the kids movies I haven't seen. So Despicable Me 4's out, Inside Out 2's out. I'm trying to think. The Kung Fu Panda 4. I didn't realize there were that many, and I think that's Jack Black that was very weird timing where he made those, or his associate, I guess, made those comments about the president, and then all that controversy, and now I guess it's back on. His touring is back on, so that was a whole. Anyway, I'm trying not to get off the topic here, but yeah. So the animated ones I haven't seen. There's a few others in there I haven't seen, but I did want to mention A Quiet Place Day One. I did like that movie. I know you and Rick probably didn't like it as much as I did, but I thought that was kind of a good sort of prequel, third entry into that franchise.
Yeah.
But the amount of movies that lost money this year, whether it's Horizon, Borderlands, Furiosa, this has been a terrible year for Hollywood in terms of the risks they took and how little they got on their investment.
I mean, anyway. And not only that, but thinking from this perspective, like Inside Out 2 and Deadpool Wolverine are 2 Disney movies. Those are the highest grossing movies so far this year. And even what should be a big comeback win for Disney with those 2 films doing well, it's still they can't even celebrate it too much, because you look at what's around the corner from them. They have a complete disaster on Captain America 4 that they have on their hands for next year, where like I said, they've invested $400 million in production alone. Like, that's just absolutely absurd. Then you have the Snow White fiasco, which is playing out in front of our eyes right now, where quite literally the Israel-Palestine conflict might end up quite literally killing that film in more ways than one, because the 2 stars are on completely opposite sides of that whole situation. Then I had this one right here. This is Borderlands. If you guys remember last week, we actually did a movie night because I really just didn't want to watch Borderlands at the time and didn't want to like waste time on that one for a movie review. But I did end up watching that film. I know I talked about it with MSK last week. Here's the thing with Borderlands. The reason why Borderlands at the moment is in my top 10 worst movies of the year is the textbook definition of a soulless Hollywood movie. Like, you talk about a movie that has no care, everybody in this film is completely miscast. Kate Blanchett, who I think is like 53 years old now, looks like an old woman in this movie. She looks like someone at Comic-Con cosplaying the character that she's actually playing in the film, and that's not a good thing. Then you have Kevin Hart, who is completely miscast in this movie. Who else? Jamie Lee Curtis. Why is she in this film? Why is Jack Black in this movie? And by the way, you're basing this all on a video game that was popular back in 2009. You tried to make this movie for the last 15 years. By the time it came out, that video game is not as popular as it was when you guys put this whole plan into motion anyway. If this had came out, let's say 2012, well, around that time period, you probably would have got a lot more juice out of this film, especially if you had a couple of these people who were in it then. All that stuff's completely out the window now. And like I said, this is a movie that I believe, what was it? I think it was like $210 million was invested into this movie just on production alone. So that just goes to show you that they were completely sauced all over this film. It's been out a week and it's only made $15 million. It's going to lose a massive amount of money. And I could see why they didn't even bother to put any of the stuff into production at this point. It just is what it is. Borderlands bombed so hard that the director had to put out a statement to fans to give it a chance to try to watch it. Yeah, that's never a good sign, especially when the film's in its first week in the box office. Then again, I think what's his name, Zachary Levi, kind of did the same thing with Harold and the Purple Crayon. But if I'm not mistaken, I think Harold and the Purple Crayon is drawing more money than that film. Now you can say that it's a kids movie or a family movie, but I do think that one has drawn more money. Let's just check that one real quick. Crap. Okay, I'll have to do it later because I'm not gonna sit here and try to figure out how Box Office Mojo works. DK says Rick would say, "Who's the target audience for this film? No one." And
but to be fair, it's for fans of the franchise. It's fans of the game because I mean I'm sure they have the same idea, as the people who produced like the Fallout series on Amazon Prime. It's like, hey, there's an entire generation or a couple generations who know this and they'll go see it, and nobody went to see it. I mean. The movie's terrible, but on top of that, it's just like nobody went to see it. So even the target audience you were hoping for didn't show up.
Yep. And then Harold and the Purple Crayon right here, $19 million. So it has in fact drawn more money than Borderlands, even though it's still a major disappointment. And let's go ahead and introduce our first guest here for the night. Our good buddy Cole Classic Cage is joining us here for an aliens discussion. How you doing, Cassie?
What up? Oh my god, I was like, holy shit, I had to floor it to get home. It's a drive that normally takes 40 minutes took like 30, so I'm here.
Mm-hmm. You broke a few speed laws. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. Doing 60, in a 45 while blasting GoldenEye in your car so everyone can hear it at like 10 o'clock at night is fucking amazing. Not for nothing. So
yeah, right. Well, right before you came on here, we were basically just talking about kind of the state of movies this year. Now, I know you have actually started your own movie channel, which is hilarious to me because you are notorious for staying away from bad movies, which is basically every movie that is out right now. So what is the direction of your new movie channel? Are you going like for retro stuff? Are you actually trying to get in the trenches and actually watch some of these films?
Oh, I will only see a film that I think I'm going to at least appreciate in some way, shape, or form. If it's like a piece of shit film, there's nothing that's going to get me to go sit in a movie theater and watch it. So the idea is to essentially, in hopes of liking the film that I go to see. That's why I went to see Alien, Romulus, because I'm like, it actually looks scary, and that's something that I've been dying for in horror films. So that was like, okay, that's a draw. I'll go check it out. But stuff like Borderlands, I love the Borderlands games, at least 1 and 2. I knew from off rip, like the first 2 seconds of the trailer, that it was going to be a piece of shit and that there's no amount of money anyone could pay me to go see it. So, yeah.
Okay, real quick, maybe this is a better question for Rob. Can you think of any film out there, and I'm being like serious, can you think of any film that has been in production hell for at least 15 years that when it finally saw the light of day was actually worth the wait and everything that was invested in there? Because I honestly can't think of one.
No. Look.
Honestly,
the Crow remake, they were going to make that with Jason Momoa back in the, you know what I mean? That has been in production hell. So I will be surprised if they actually got it right. I know that's coming out next week too. So
looks like shit. That's another movie I won't go to see. There's nothing you could do to make me see it. I mean, I guess this is the year for like production hell movies to come out. I guess so.
Yeah. It's been a bad year. Speaking of bad year, there was right before we talk about the Aliens movie, there's one other movie that I need to talk about. As I was editing my review for what was the movie that I literally just saw? It was this movie for Bounding in the Comics. I was doing a video review for that. I was watching a Amazon Prime film called Jackpot. It has Awkwafina and John Cena, and it's supposed to be a comedy movie. Now, here's the setup, because it really doesn't make too much sense, but the setup here is that in some kind of fictionalized world in 2030, there's a California lottery where if you're selected as the lottery winner, somehow you have to survive a matter of 6 hours where everyone in the town is trying to kill you. But if you manage to survive that time frame, you somehow keep the money, but the person who kills you during that time frame, they get the money too. So it's basically The Purge, but played up as a comedy. And Here's the thing with comedies and John Cena, right? Because I do believe John Cena has the capability of being funny, but the problem is that he is given absolutely rotten material to work with, and even though he truly does try his best to make it work, there's just no way of making this stuff funny. Aquafina, I don't think has ever really been funny in anything that I've seen. If you feel free to correct me, if you guys remember anything that actually made you laugh. The first 15 minutes of this movie, and Christian Toto, our good buddy, made this comment too, because I was literally watching the same thing. There's not anything that can remotely qualify as a joke in the entirety of a film, and they were trying really hard to make you laugh, and I can see like the whole ha 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 moments that they were going for. It's an awful movie. I ended up watching the whole thing. It's rotten. So what I did was, and look, I might get in trouble for showing this because it technically has not been posted on Bounding in the Comic Shop, but I'm gonna give you guys an exclusive video that you will only see here and maybe Bounding in the next couple of days. This is my review of the film Jackpot. So I want you guys to enjoy this ride with me because everything that I saw in this film was basically the same thing. So you're all going to experience it here against your will. Aren't you glad you came back, Cassie?
Oh, wonderful. The torture resumes right from where we left off. Holy shit.
All right, here's my review of Jackpot.
What is going on?
Katie, you won the lottery. And now anyone with a losing ticket that kills you before sundown gets her money. Legally.
Okay, that's murder.
Oh, not in California. It's just a chance at the big time.
Hey guys, Society Reviews here, my review of the film Jackpot.
Oh, you dirt-faced me! Oh, shit in my sneaker!
Oh my God, that was so funny!
I think it's because you look like a bulldog that like a witch casts a spell on and turn into a human. You ever get that?
This is a prosthetics machine. If people can't recognize you, you're a lot safer.
Hey, girl, hey. What? Too sexy?
Again, another stellar joke. Boy, do you suck. Why don't you sew up that pussy and grow a dick? We might get a joke out of you. God damn it.
So, like, does this thing follow the same rules as the movie?
Oh, Lord, I hope not. I don't think our legal team would allow for that much murder.
Oh, hell no.
Oh, hell yeah.
I need a hero. I felt that too.
I'm pretty resilient to this dumb shit, but oh my God, I'm gonna kill myself. Fucking.
Not the heel. Jesus, Hollywood's gotten extremely competitive.
What the fuck you do? Break your funny bone and forget to set it? Jesus Christ.
What the hell was that?
You think I'm gonna kick somebody out of a movie car without a helmet? I'm not a monster.
Let's rock.
All right.
Yeah, 0 out of 5.
That's
So there you go. There's an exclusive review of the film Jackpot, a film that, by the way, directed by our favorite director of all time, Paul Feig, who's done great movies such as Bridesmaids and Ghostbusters: The Female Edition and A Simple Favor and other great things that were super funny that everyone loved.
Jonsson is the type of actor that you could just tell that he's acting. I'd rather an actor like a star typically just acts like themselves, and that's the draw. I prefer if an actor does that as opposed to them, like me being able to tell, yeah, you're just simply acting. It's fucking god awful. Another actress, an actress that I hate is Bette Davis because it genuinely just feels like you can tell that she's just acting. I don't understand how people like her, but yeah.
Well, like I said, it's just it's so bad and it's so forced, and you think to yourself, it's like, is this what John has to do in order to be in the club now? Because this is kind of the same route that The Rock took initially. Remember The Rock? He was doing like those really awful like Disney movies, and he was in those bad movies. Like what was it, like Get Shorty, or like one of those like remakes that he did too, where he was like basically degrading himself for a while, and then that was all to get him to the point. It was like, oh, now you're gonna be Mr. Fast and Furious guy for like the next 10 years. But it's like why are we wasting our time with these garbage movies? And God, the comedy in Hollywood is just awful now. Like, I know this isn't new. I've been saying this now for at least, 8 years, but man, it just continues. So, like, they don't know what funny is anymore. And I'm not sure if you've noticed this too, Rob. It's not just comedy anymore. They don't know what funny is anymore. They don't know what romance is anymore. Like, we're literally watching entire genres just die in front of our eyes because the people who are in charge of these, movies just don't know how to actually sell the genre that they're presenting to audiences anymore.
Yeah, it's I mean, Vince Vaughn did a series of interviews recently, and I think he's promoting some new show he has on Apple TV. But just where comedies have gone, where they don't make studio comedies the way they used to, where making comedies on a certain level, it's about taking risks. Getting people to laugh requires taking risks, and taking that risk involves potentially offending people. And a lot of studio executives today don't want to greenlight anything that is risky or might alienate or cause a backlash, or you know what I mean? Because this is the sort of environment that the stuff is being created in. And like when was the last funny Vince Vaughn movie? You know what I mean? You'd literally have to go back to, I mean, I don't even know. Like, I didn't even like that Google movie they did, The Internship. But
yeah,
I've said this a bunch of times. The last really funny comedy movie, in my opinion, was The Other Guys, which came out in 2010. I mean, you have stuff like Game Night, which was pretty good, but that's almost like a play on David Fincher's The Game, and a sort of comedy thing. And it was funny. It just, there has not been much to really talk about in terms of comedy, humor. Like, and Horrible Bosses was pretty funny, but like the sequel wasn't, and it's just a series of diminishing returns at this point. I hope it changes, but I kind of get the feeling like it's dying out. Like we've kind of seen the last of funny movies in Hollywood, which is really really a damn shame.
Yeah. Like, to me, the one comedy movie that sticks out, it was probably 5 years ago, was a film called Tag, and I actually really enjoyed that one. I think that's the last genuinely funny movie that I can point to. I know there was a really good comedy film called The Extreme Job. That was like a South Korean movie that came out, I think, a year afterwards. But outside of that, when we talk about genuine comedy movies, I can't think of too many ones that are actually good. Like, I know we've had a number of bad ones this year alone. Like, The Fall Guy was not good. Babes was absolutely terrible. We had films like Ricky Stenicki that were supposed to be like a comedy movie. So that genre is really, really struggling with quality. And like I said, if I have to go back to 2018 to find a movie, I was like, oh no, this is actually legitimately funny, and I would recommend it to my friends. That's kind of the bad shape that we're in at the moment.
And
unfortunately,
you've seen them give movies to Joe Coy and Sebastian Maniscalco, and both of those movies, they fell absolutely flat on their faces. Easter Sunday, I think, was the Joe Coy one, and then that terrible Sebastian Maniscalco and Robert De Niro movie, About My Father or whatever it was called, was just what are we doing here? What are we doing? And then you have to look in movies like Blackberry to find comedy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where Glenn Howerton is screaming his head off. And it's funny, but it's in the he's an angry asshole funny way, not this is, jokes being set up and being knocked down kind of thing. So it definitely, the climate definitely leaves a lot to be desired with the comedy movie, for sure.
Yeah, I was just literally searching my old reviews from just the comedy genre, and I'm just looking at some of these. I'm just going, oof, that was actually not very good at all. I literally have to go all the way back to 2020. If you guys remember a film called Buffalo with Zoe Dutch, I was like, oh, that was actually pretty good. So I guess that's the first movie 4 years I can go back to comedy wise, be like, wow, has it been that long? It's yes, it has. So. Well, before we get started on the aliens discussion, I just wanted to spotlight Cassie for letting her hair grow out. You are looking extra Puerto Rican here tonight. I just wanted to throw that out there. Your efforts are not going unnoticed there.
Yeah,
And then,
I just don't have the will to cut my hair, and I'm just letting it rock.
let's let it go. Just go full Prince with it. That's all I gotta say. But the reason why we brought you on tonight, because obviously we're talking about aliens here. And I know you're a big aliens fan, and like I was mentioning earlier at the very beginning of the show, this is now the 7th Alien movie out of the entire franchise, and I'm pretty sure most of you guys will probably have to like Google at least 4 of them to remember that they exist, but they do in fact exist. So let's kind of rewind how we got here. The first Aliens movie came out in 1979, so yes, it hasn't been 45 years since the first Alien movie. So yeah, if anyone who was born that year, you were well into middle age. Aliens 2, I guess Aliens came out in 1986, and that was the one that really like shot this movie to like a whole nother stratosphere outside of just being kind of like a one-off horror movie. It turned it into a franchise. But then with that said, we ended up getting Aliens 3 a few years later, and everyone was like, oh, okay, well, maybe we should have just stayed where we were. And then after that, we got Aliens Resurrection, which is like, okay, I think we're officially done now. So it was a good ride, but this is probably where we're going to end this show. Then 20th Century Fox decided that they were going to resurrect the Aliens franchise and not have, the Predator in there for a while, but they were going to do like this new direction where we're going to do a series of prequels. So they're going to explain how we got these aliens, the xenomorphs and everything, and then we got that terrible Prometheus movie. There's some bits to it that are good. I think Naomi Pruss was actually a pretty good actress like in that film, even though there are certain scenes that didn't make any sense, like her literally getting an alien baby ripped out of her stomach and then just stapling herself shut so she can go around and run around the ship for a while. Then of course the infamous Charlize Theron death, which just got memed to absolute hell because she's literally folding in the same direction a giant ship is going at her as. Then a few years after that, we got Alien Covenant, which is basically the Michael Fassbender Alien film, and he's basically playing like the Art. What was his name? Art? Is that the robot from the first movie? Isn't
that Prometheus?
No, he was also in what was it? Not Romulus, but Alien Covenant as well. They brought him back for Covenant. His character was so great in Prometheus. Like, oh yeah, let's showcase him even further in Alien Covenant. And then I don't know, that film, I don't even remember it being that big of a hit. I think it did like 240 million on like $110 million budget. So, but by no stretch of the imagination were any of those films like, oh my God, we definitely need to bring this one back. Like it was a huge drop off. So now here we are. This is the 7th film in 2024, and they're once again trying to reset things. But now instead of just kind of going in their own direction and not basing itself off of prior movies, they're like, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna make a new film with a whole new cast, and we're gonna set it right between the ending events of the first movie and the beginning events of the second movie and be in that universe. Here's the problem with this. The timeline of Aliens is already massively screwed up as it is. Like, if you really like map it all out and put it on a board, it really doesn't make any sense because you have like 3 movies that jump around in time, and then the last 2 movies are supposed to be prequels set way before any of those events. And now what we're going to do is that we're going to sprinkle this movie in between those films and then basically confuse people into thinking that, oh yeah, this is technically a inner sequel to the first movie, and this events take place right after that. This is a film that, if you guys didn't know, it relies a lot on member berries and a lot on references to prior Alien films. And I'm talking about all the Alien films. Like, there's references to the first one, the second one, Resurrection, Prometheus, and Covenant, all rolled up into one. Now, when you remove all that together, do you really have anything that worth standing on its own? And the answer here is absolutely not. So before I get into Rob's thoughts on kind of the setup of this film, Cassie, kind of explain your background with the Aliens franchise and what were you expecting this film to be? Like, were you actually excited about this? Like, you saw the trailer, you thought that it was scary. Like, what were you thinking going into this?
So I watched OG Aliens, and I love those films. I think they're phenomenal in their own, unique ways. And then I watched Aliens 3 kicking and screaming, and I was like, oh, I'm good here. So I haven't watched anything past 3 because normally once I touch shit, I back away.
Yeah,
so
probably good, sorry.
In regards to at least like member berries with anything after 3, I can't really speak to it personally. But I was just hoping that we would get back to legitimate horror because, I mean, I'm a huge fan of the original Halloween, for example, and the previous Halloween trilogy that we went through is one big fucking joke. It isn't horror. It's like a I relate a lot of horror films now to more like scary movie than actual legitimate horror. So when I saw this Alien trailer for Alien Romulus, I was like, okay, I'm liking the tone, I'm liking the vibe. This is what I want to see in a horror film. So that's what made me, interested for sure. And um I'm at least appreciative that they gave us that because it feels rare, kind of like how you guys were talking about, comedy. It's almost like they shove comedy and everything else, and all the genres now just seem to hold together in this like really fucked up way that I can't stand. So, that was what I was looking for. I was looking for suspense and horror and good tone to the film mainly.
So you didn't watch Alien Resurrection? Wasn't that the movie with Winona Ryder? Well, wasn't that her and like the
Yeah.
black dude from CSI?
Never seen.
Yep, 99. Yep.
Yeah,
And see that this is the thing is that in the third act, when you get to the third act, it's a big like, oh, okay. Okay, fine. I see what you did. You okay.
Exactly.
All right. So no, but and just real quick, like I grew up with all three of these, as a kid. So this was just very very much ingrained in my psyche and my headspace. I actually go to bat for Alien 3. Now there's like a couple different versions. It was David Fincher's first movie as a director. There are things that I like about it. I like some of the performances. It's such a deviation from the series, though. I get why it was hated. I get why it was, even when it came out, it was divisive. It was like, okay, we hate this movie. I grew up with it. I have a soft spot for it. I can see, I could at least argue in my point of view, like why I think it's a good movie, but I totally understand why it's a divisive entry in the series. And then Resurrection is also kind of a guilty pleasure. Like it's definitely a flawed movie, but like for something that came out 20 years after the original, it was kind of a fun, hey, let's run this with Sigourney Weaver one more time and see what we get. Even though, she's a clone and it's not really Ripley and all that weird, plot mechanic shit. But and look, I was really looking forward to Alien Romulus when I saw the trailer. I was like, do we actually have a decent Alien movie to go see? And like, it definitely gave you vibes of the first movie, that claustrophobia and panic and those tight hallways and in space, nobody can hear you scream, using kind of bringing back that tagline. So I was definitely looking forward to this, quietly optimistic about it.
Well, someone who is also definitely looking forward to this movie, and I think he might have enjoyed it a little bit more than others, is our good buddy Culture Casino. How you doing, Culture?
I'm doing fantastic. Just remember, Jacob is always wrong. Okay. Just
you're pointing down. Yeah, I'm up here.
Right here. It says under my name, Jacob is always wrong. So anyway, I just want to say no. Look, I thought the movie was fine. It's a good movie. It's not a great movie. I'm not going to be overly harsh on it. I'm not going to call it divergent because my goodness, that was terrible. No, I was looking forward to it a lot. I mean, it did not live up quite to my hype. But I have to say mad respect to Fede Alvarez because you were looking at almost everything practical, which is not done in movies now. It also was done for a legitimately...
And somehow they saved money, which is even weirder, right?
That's actually where I was headed. They legitimately did it for a realistic budget of $80 million, which shows you can make a good movie for $80 million. You do not need $400 million and 3 months of reshoots. You just
where did the money go?
The film doesn't feel cheap, which I can appreciate. It doesn't feel cheap at all.
Well, what was the other sci-fi movie that hit with Denzel Washington's son?
Oh God!
Tenet?
It was
after that one. It was
it was one that was shot.
The AI movie,
the Star Wars one, the Star Wars looking movie.
No. Well, not really. It's about the cyborg child of the baby AI cyborg kid.
It looks like Star Wars to me.
It was like the robot Jesus movie. What was that terrible? The Creator. That's the name of it.
The Creator, right? It wasn't terrible. It wasn't great. But what it was cheap. So, I'm like, you can make, it doesn't matter. Like I said, you don't have to make a great movie. You just have to make a good movie, and you have to make it for not, freaking what Netflix just canceled, right? You cannot make a Zack Snyder movie for, $400 million that runs for 3 hours or whatever the heck that stupid Rebel Moon thing was.
3.5 hours if you include the director's cut.
I don't want to. I don't want to include any cut. I don't want to see any more of those. I don't want to see any of them. I don't want to see more of his zombie things because those also suck. So he spends a lot of money and he sucks.
You don't like Zack Snyder's gimmick of, hey guys, I know you guys hated my movie, but if you guys release my cut of the film, I promise it's going to be good.
Yeah, because Josh Whedon was the problem. Man. Yeah, and it's good to see you, Cassie. It's been a minute and a half.
Likewise, bro. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah, and Rob, it's good to see you too. And at least you have the name right. It doesn't say Divergent, so well done. No, I honestly, I enjoyed the film. I gave it an 8 out of 10 because it's better than average.
Well,
but the problem is
we haven't even begun talking about it yet. You're already giving your ratings for it.
Well, no. Well, because I'm trying to get out in front of your hate speech.
Oh, okay. Here we go.
I actually enjoyed it, but like I said, I don't have like the shit. I avoid shit movies, so anything that it was referencing, honestly, I wouldn't know anything past 3. So that's just me.
Really? Okay, good for you. Yeah, it look, if you're looking at it that way, I'm gonna do it. It's one of my 3 favorite Alien films.
Well, I mean, there's only 2 good ones, so I mean, that wouldn't be an extreme statement.
No, it isn't. There's the first 2 films in this one. You only need them. In fact, what's great is this is a midquel for those other 2 films. So I think that's pretty awesome.
I've heard the term midquel. I've heard the term intersequel. To say like it's confusing.
Well, if you want to be really fancy, interstitial. But regardless, I just look at it and I say this thing is the perfect meat in the sandwich, right? And it kept the aesthetic of the first 2 films, which I thought was amazing. In fact, I was talking about this earlier today. I'm glad I'm here now because they like reproduced somehow 4:3 screens. Those weren't wide screens.
Yeah.
In the computers. That was cool.
Isn't it shocking how like movies that go to like basic filmmaking tactics are now being praised because of just the underabundance of crap that we've been given over the last several years?
Well, okay, so this is the weirdest thing. Practical sets. I don't know what these words mean. Sorry. But what we've been given is just a lot of technology. Like you ever go to a bowling alley and they have the little kids come in and they inflate these bumpers on the side of the lanes so that they just roll the ball and it bounces till it hits something.
That's how me and Cassie bowl.
There you go. I don't know that I want to see that, but look, so that's what that is, right? That's what this technology is for people who suck at films. That's what it is. So you use the volume, because you think it's going to save you time and money because you're not going to go scout and have to set up a camp and everything else because movies got incredibly expensive, now even more so with these ridiculous union deals that got handed out, which is why we're going to get less and less over the next 5 to 10 years. Setting that all aside.
You mean less films?
Yeah. You can get less films.
That's a good thing. Less pieces of shit being released, yeah. Most movies were not released. They escaped, I'm convinced.
Hey, though, look, I'm fully support Hollywood having a salary cap when it comes to movies at this point.
Okay, and that's what I'm saying is if you didn't rely so much on the volume and fixing it in post and reshooting a million times, films would be cheaper. You know what you do? You want to do some cool stuff? Go to Hungary. Go to Hungary and film there. That's what you do.
Has anyone ever thought about going to Hungary and doing a movie about food?
No.
That'd be funny as heck. This movie actually was shot in Hungary, and I bet you they were. The colony and all the sets were built there and at the legendary studios there, and they only had 8 sets. They just made them all look different.
Oh, that's awesome. I do love the visual aesthetic of the film. I really love the way the spaceships looked. All that stuff. Like I'm the type of person, like when CGI becomes noticeable, I'm immediately turned off. Like it's very hard for me to suspend disbelief.
Yeah.
And the film, while the film was really dark, and I'm glad that it was, I really love the visual aesthetic of what they had going on.
Well, let's
Yeah.
talk about the cast here for a second, because obviously in a film like this where you're going to have a bunch of giant black monsters ripping people apart, like you're not going to have too many great characters in the sense that they're not going to be around very long. But the film, this film, Alien Romulus, is asking Sissy, what was it, Cailee Spaeny? Is that her name? Or Spaeny? What you
Spaeny.
name? Spaeny. There we go.
Cailee Spaeny. Yeah, she was terrible in Civil War, and she was decent
boy.
in this.
You have the absolute
sorry, I'm
100%
just gonna go
opposite
ahead and
opinion of
disagree with
Rob.
you. Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry. That's just blasphemy. But I respect you have your own opinion, so I'll leave it at that. But
I'm sorry.
I did.
Wait.
Yeah, I did think she was excellent in Civil War, but and not very good here. But
Wow. Okay. So permanent stunned face works for you then?
that's what she's doing in Alien Romulus. Exactly.
No, that's what she was doing in Civil War. Exactly. Yeah.
Well,
There was
I
no
think it's
depth in her acting in that film.
with her in this
There you
film. She kind of
Yeah.
reminded me of Ashley Judd in the face, but without the resting bitch face.
Yeah, there's definitely a level of innocence there, even though she's like 27. Hey, I look.
That's what we
like
mentioned.
15.
That's what we mentioned during like Civil War. Like when I saw her in that
Yeah.
film, I think it's the first time I saw her, and I was like, "Is this girl like over 18?" And then we realized she was like 27. And it's like, "Oh yeah, I don't know about that." But well, that's a whole other conversation.
So
for another day.
wait. No, now I need a follow-up question here, Rob. Did you like Civil War?
It's my number 2 film of the year. Yes.
Jacob, I gotta go.
Oh,
It was nice to be on your show again. I had a lot of fun.
Oh,
All
what's
right.
funny is I thought you were talking about the MCU bullshit, and I forgot that there was a film that came
no.
out this
I
year.
don't think that comes out.
Yes.
I don't think that
No,
comes out till next year.
we were
but-
talking about the predictive propaganda film Civil War, not the one with
Yes.
Iron Man and Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So that's completely
Wow.
different Civil War.
Okay. Next thing you're gonna say, Rob, is you're voting for Kamala.
I mean, I literally bought the 4K Blu-ray. Came last week, so yeah, I really like that.
Is
movie
that
a
the
lot.
one with the 10, or is that like the special one?
Sure, I don't know.
Cassie,
I haven't opened it yet.
Cassie, did you watch Civil War?
I didn't convince myself to make a movie channel. So up until I made a movie channel, I was just avoiding films.
Good for you. Good for you.
Yeah.
She's
Now
just
at least,
everything.
I'll at least see films that maybe I'll like. That's
All right.
you're not gonna make me watch shit movies that I know are gonna be shit.
The reality is that she's just sick and tired of being hunted down by PlayStation fanboys, so she thought that movies would be a lot easier. And
Brother,
Wait a minute.
if that was the case, I wouldn't have made a new Twitter account after my Twitter account got yeeted.
What happened?
It's a whole thing. We'll get
It'll
into
come
it.
back.
All right.
It'll
Well,
come
anyway,
back,
so
but-
So
Wait.
this character Cailee here is
Cailee.
playing the character of
Rain.
Rain, and
Yeah.
she's here with her android synthetic, who is kind of like her surrogate brother in the film, played by David Jonsson. Now, the whole setup here for this movie is that these two are on a mining colony, and Rain thinks that she has finally worked up enough hours to essentially earn her freedom, and then she finds out, nope, we're gonna keep you here for another 6 years because F you, that's why. So it's like, hooray for capitalism. That was the whole bit of that whole sequence there. So she's like, okay, well, crap, I'm not just gonna sit here and work as a slave for 6 years, so I'm gonna rendezvous with my group of friends here who just so happens to have a plan that, hey, there's this giant abandoned spaceship that's just hovering around this planet over here. If we get on a spaceship and collect the supplies and items that we need to go to another planet and live a much better life, we can go do that essentially before anyone else catches us and we have anything major to worry about. So they all jump on the ship here. You have a lovely group of stereotypes here for the most part, with the exception of one character, which we'll talk about here in a second. But they all go up here onto this abandoned ship. They jump on. They notice that, wow, everything seemingly is intact, until they realize that this ship has already been attacked by a group of alien spider creatures that just so happens to hug your face. And we end up getting, oh, hey, wait, it's an aliens movie. And then this leads us into the central conflict here. So by the time they get here, you have a few things going on here. You have, like I said, the character of Rain. You have the character of Andy here, the android Andy, who's essentially playing what was the character's name here from the
Bishop?
David character? No, not Bishop. The one that Ian Holm played. Ash. That's the name of the
Ash,
character.
yeah.
I know it started with an A. I couldn't remember his exact name, but so he's essentially kind of like the modern Ash in the concept of this film, and then they end up falling into, I guess, a past version of Ash who got attacked by the xenomorphs. Now, in case you guys didn't realize, Ian Holm died 4 years ago, so it's clearly not him. But of course, they used his voice and likeness. I'm pretty sure with a little VFX and AI that tied onto it as well. So here's kind of what we're setting up here. This film has a lot of callbacks to several Aliens movies, not just particularly the first one, but there's a little bit of the first one, a little bit of the second one. You have a little bit of Resurrection thrown in here. Obviously, you have Prometheus thrown in here as well. So this is kind of like a hodgepodge of a lot of Aliens movies that I'm pretty sure is going to work over well with fans, hardcore fans of the Aliens franchise up to this point. But my biggest problem with this film, especially early on in that first a third of it, and we mentioned this last night on Culture Show, is not Culture Show, but Comic Show, is that there really isn't much to this film outside of a very basic plot. It is not until people start getting killed that the film really starts to pick up and become something more interesting. Now, I know a lot of people said, well, the first two acts were good and then it fell apart on the third. I kind of have the opposite view of things. It was very slow in the first half, and then in the first third, I should say, and then picked up later on. It did stumble towards the end. We'll get to that here in a second. But Rob, I'll start this one off with you, then I'll hit with Culture here. What was your thoughts on at least the setup here, and what do you think about the film's connection to previous Alien movies? Do you think it relied a little too much on that? What's kind of your view on it based on this is the 7th movie of the Alien franchise?
Yeah, I kind of felt like this movie didn't have any identity. Felt like an Alien movie imitation. Now I did like the sort of initial atmosphere and setting of the ship, because it did very much remind me of Alien. But it took like 45 minutes, something like that, before we're in the cryo chamber, the cryo chamber scene where all the facehuggers get released. So I thought it took a long time to get going. I was trying to stay patient with it. There really is no sense of character building. It's kind of just like basic plot beats, which is fine. It's a horror movie in space. Like, I get it. It's supposed to be about scares. It's supposed to be about, a thrill ride kind of. So, I mean, I can accept that. But yeah, kind of that initial setup I thought was a bit clumsy until we get to the third act. That's kind of when I was like, okay, a little too late, but I can see the effort. I can see the sort of reveal there. So, but yeah, that's kind of my initial thoughts on it. It was just kind of just an incomplete execution overall.
Real quick, before I go to Culture, I want Cassie's thoughts on this because she is the gamer here. So you're well of the Dead Space video game, right, Cassie?
Absolutely, yep.
So you've played Dead Space 2 a few times in your life.
Shit. It's been a long time, admittedly. So
it was a while ago, admittedly, but you have played it, right?
Yeah.
So my context of this film is that it felt very much like the second Dead Space. And here's what I mean by that. It's that they're all going up on the ship. Now, obviously, the kids have no idea what the ship is, who used it, what it represented, or anything until they get there. And when you get there, you realize that it's basically kind of the setup of, it's almost as if somebody walked into the events of the first movie immediately after it happened. And it's very similar in the same way that with Dead Space 2, where at certain point of the video game, you go back to the events of Dead Space 1, and you go back to the exact same ship, you take the exact same path, except for everything, all the crap is already gone down, and you're just left with like the aftermath of it. And that's kind of probably the biggest hooking point with this film, like drawing people in, is that it makes you feel like you're rewatching the first movie, or you're reliving the first movie again, except for you're doing it with a completely different cast of people who don't exactly know how compromised this ship already is. That aspect of it, I actually think is a pretty cool aspect. Now, like I said, I think because they wanted to stick with kind of like that timeline of, like I said, in between the first and the second, but they have to throw in all the other things to tie in all the other movies. I think it kind of overwhelmed itself after a while. But Culture, what was your take on the way that this film kind of like brought together all the elements of the previous Alien movies?
Actually, I think Rob couldn't be more wrong. of course. I have to tell you that the film set itself up quite well. The beginning of the first act was exactly as long as it needed to be. In fact, I think the time on the colony would have allowed more character establishment that you were looking for, Rob. And it took them exactly 15 minutes. Do you know how I know? I was timing this film all the way through to get,
Stopwatch.
from truly from the beginning to the station itself. And maybe it took a little while to get from, entering the space station to the cryo chamber. But if you notice something, the film kind of stuck by a clock I didn't like, but they introduced a ticking clock element into the film. And that was the degradation of orbit, which accelerated after a situation happened on the station itself. So what should have just been a trip in and out to go get cryo fuel, which was needed for the pods, which was the driver of the film at that point, they didn't really need the ticking clock until they actually had the catastrophe happen that forced it to be faster. So look, you didn't get a lot of, you really don't usually get a lot of characterization. They did develop the 2 and 3 characters that they needed to have developed to make this work. But some of that is because they didn't do what the original 2 films did, and that is to give you time to get to know the characters, because there was no locker room conversation. They tried to do that on the colony at the beginning of the film, where they all go up to that one ship, but it was a half-hearted effort, and nobody writes dialogue well in films or television anymore. So but
real quick, let me ask you this: do you think that should be a negative against the film, especially when you're considering in the context you're trying to play off of at least the first 2 movies that did take that time and effort to kind of build the characters and make that connection? And with this one, you're only doing that with, let's be honest, 3 characters at most, and everyone else is kind of farther up to a point.
Everybody else is developed via expositional dialogue, which I find detestable. But that's unfortunately that's a current mechanism employed by modern writing. So you're going to have to argue that every film is a piece of shit if that's going to be your baseline, because that's all that happens, even in Marvel movies.
I do that pretty frequently.
Yes.
Yeah. I think we all do.
Go ahead.
I like that the film starts off as a slow burn. I think that because I don't want to be rushed in a film like this. I want to build. I want them to build that ambiance, that vibe that we're looking for with an alien film, and that's why I don't mind that beginning being slow like it is. But when I look at the characters, I don't care about any of them, and they don't make me care about any of them, and that's the issue. Like there's characters, like even in the original Alien, all those dudes, there's something that you could say about all of them. Even the ones that are like the lesser of, there's something about them, if it's the way that they look or just something, or even a cat. Maybe I think this film needed a cat, honestly. It would have made it a whole lot better.
There was a lot of P words in this film, but I understand. Anyway, I'm talking about the dude that was in it that went out like a punk to the acid. But anyway,
a lot of space vaginas.
Yeah, all that too. Yeah. It was
Quite
this film was very vaginal. But anyway, well, Geiger stuff is, come on now, it's phalluses and other things. So but anyway, what I really thought was that slow burn, but this film built from the silence of space at the very beginning to a crescendo, and then again to the silence of space. So if
here's one thing that I think hurts this film at this point. It's not particularly this film's fault, but it's just kind of the setup of this franchise. It's like, when you go back to the first Aliens movie, right? Like when you look at, the situation with like the face hurgers and like the acid and all that stuff, like we didn't know what these things were capable of at the time, which made it more of a shock. It was like, oh, this character's dead because the thing bursted out of his body. It's like, oh, well, you can't shoot it because it's acid out of his blood. By this point in time, we know the rules of like these things. So when they're trying to play some of those similar steps with, like I said, the girl who gets, hit in the face like right away, then she eventually dies. Like we all know at that point she's dead. Like we all know that she's done. We all know that when he tries to shoot the thing, that the acid blood's going to tear through like the ship. Like we know that now, so the audience doesn't have that sense of kind of surprise with this film as we've had with like previous films. Like I said, I don't know that's particularly an issue with like this movie, but like I said, after 7 movies, we all know everything. Do you think they should have done a better job of at least kind of like better setting up some of these surprises so that people are not just sitting there like their arms crossed, like, oh, I know where this is going?
I watched the whole audience jump when the synthetic ash came back to life and grabbed the leg of. Yeah, I think everybody in the theater went up. How do I know? Because I watched them. So yeah, but I mean, you are always going to get the jump scares of surprise because that's just, you can count on somebody to craft those really well. But you're right. I think we're in a world that's well developed without a lot of the discoveries that you find out until we found out that they had succeeded to do a little bit of Prometheus here at the end, which was something I didn't enjoy. Why are you laughing, Rob? Because that's the right answer. Or
no, because we were literally just mocking
Prometheus. Just in chat.
The Prometheus is garbage. But what I didn't really look, there are things that worked in the film, there are things that won't. And like I said, the setup getting to the ship, or the at this point, which they thought was a ship, turned out to be a space station. Getting to the ship to get the equipment that they needed to get the heck out of there, I thought that was perfect. And if you want to stand out in this film, you guys probably already mentioned it, but Andy was the standout.
I had a different take on him. I actually thought the standout in this movie, and maybe it has more to do with the fact that she was the only other character in this film that had personality out of the main two, was Isabela Merced, who is playing the pregnant girl like in the movie. If you recall, like her early setups is that she's just introduced as, I believe, one of the girlfriends to one of the main characters who, let's just say
she's the sister to the main character that clearly Callie had been with.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, but she's so the setup is that, obviously they found out later on is that she's pregnant. So it's kind of like a tease that, when her stomach starts moving, everyone's like, oh my God, is she one of them too? It's like, no, she's with a kid. And you kind of figure where this one was going here. And we'll talk about this, especially with the Prometheus aspect of this film here in a second. But for me, I knew David Jonsson to play Andy was supposed to kind of play like that tempered like Ian Holm role like in this film. However, his presentation in the film, I just never really got that because he kind of came off as more mentally handicapped than like android like he would get like, we mentioned this last night. We argued about this with me and Brahma. It's like every time he gets knocked around in the movie, he just goes into like almost like when you tip over like with a toy one of those like toy walkers and he like can't move. It's
he was damaged, barely put back together robot. I mean, that's he was redeveloped by Kaylee's dad to be pseudo brother protector, right?
Yeah,
with only one
almost.
Mission statement. Yeah.
Honestly, I think he had one of the worst scenes in the film.
Go ahead.
When essentially he calls the fucking alien a bitch.
I cringed so bad at that. Oh my God,
it's so fucking.
We mentioned that too.
It's so terrible because what made the original Ellen Ripley when she did it, it was like it felt so natural. It wasn't copying anything. It was perfect. It felt right. And this, it's just. It blatantly just copying, and it just wasn't necessary. Why couldn't he just have his own catchphrase or something? It just didn't fit at all. It was the fucking synthetic of all things saying it. And nothing about that scene felt right at all. It was terrible.
I mentioned this last night too, and what I mentioned was it's like, if you're going to do a callback to that scene, if that's what you were going to try to do, have him say a line where at least you're referencing what Ripley said in like the prior movies, but not be like line for line. It's like you can look at the monster and be like, you bitch, or something to like the lines where like the audience gets it's like, oh yeah, because that's the Ripley line, but not do it line for line. He did line for line in a way that was just like groan inducing, and I don't think anyone responded positively to that. Like that's something that probably should have cut out in a test screening for this movie, because it's like we knew that this is going to be a big callback money. It was like, no, don't do that. Like
I won't lie, there was a few chuckles in my theater, but I was just like, ugh.
You're just sitting in your stool stewing. Like I said, Cailee in this film, I think does a good job, but it's like if we're trying to make the parallel between her and Sigourney Weaver, and look, I get it. We've been trying to move on from Sigourney Weaver for what, like 25 years now from this
Can you, though?
franchise, but
Can you?
but that's the thing, though. It's like
Yeah.
every time you're going to have a female lead in this movie, everyone's going to make the parallels to Sigourney Weaver. You can't get around it. Like she is like this franchise for the most part. So when you compare her to Sigourney, I mean, you're talking about a drop off in size, stature, and honestly, acting ability too. If I'm being just completely honest here, so that's going to be like an issue in this film. The only other problem that I have with this movie is like, there's a recurring theme, and you've seen this in many films now, where they always have to do like this mother-child relationship with like the alien and some woman in the film. We saw it in Resurrection. We saw it in Prometheus, where Noomi Rapace was in the booth, and they basically recreated that scene here in this film. Like in Prometheus, she was in the booth and she had like thing in her stomach and had to like rip it out and sew her back up and all that. Then here we get that same thing again, but it gives birth to, I guess, the only new addition to the franchise at this point, which is kind of the half human, half xenomorph, which basically just looked like a giant, like 15-foot like demon thing for the most part. And that was supposed to be like the connection there. And they even teased it with like her and Isabela. It's like, oh no, he's gonna treat her like his mother now because he came out of her nether regions, because that was the thing in this film too. To me, if that's like the only thing that's really like trying to set itself apart from like all the other movies, because everything else in this film is basically a callback to previous movies, if that's the only addition that they have to go, I don't think that this film really, as Rob was saying earlier, sets itself from any of the other ones, because this one needs those references and calls back to the old ones to really have any kind of leverage here. You're basically in a lot of ways just kind of recreating the first movie with like different characters, and outside of the Prometheus callback, which like I said, not a lot of people really like the Prometheus callback, but outside of that, it's like, what more do you really have to offer for this film, which kind of makes it hard for me to recommend, because if that's the case, all you're going to do watching this film is going to want to watch the first two movies again, which are far better. And if that's all you really are at the end of the day, it's a commercial for the first two movies, it's like, what's really the draw of going to see this one, especially if you're a fan of the previous movies?
I mean, it all, it varies. I mean, a lot of people say that this is better than anything else after 2. And I've only seen 3, in that group of films. So, I mean, it's at least good to see that there's something a little more of quality being put forth, and without Sigourney Weaver.
I think,
and she can't be replaced, realistically, but at least there's something that seems to be relatively likable without Sigourney Weaver. It's kind of shocking at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I can't agree with your description there. I mean, I understand, and there are parts of it I agree with, but on the whole, the other two films were great. This film goes in between them very well, not just because of the incredible aesthetic the honor that they did there, but the fact that they didn't tell exactly the same beat for beat story. The desperation of people trying to get away from a terrible situation that they lived in. I mean, that's not what was happening in the other two films. These are people that are trapped in a life that's of a faceless, heartless, soulless corporation in Weyland-Yutani, who's having them, moves her from being a farmer to working in the mines, and doubling up what it's going to take for her to get out of there. Right. Because she was, supposed to be out of there. That was the whole point of her going to that office at the beginning of the film. And then you have, that situation. You have, the desperation of the miners themselves, who happen to be her friends, that, don't want to live the same situation or live in the same circumstance that, their parents did. So it's this desperate plan to get away from this situation. It's very different than the other films, but aside from that, their confrontation with what they come across, they while the audience may know everything that these aliens are capable of, the audience are the only ones, because the people in the film don't know. They have to have their hand held by one of the versions of Ash that was one of the early models that happened to just been there. They plugged him into a computer, and he lied to them. and installing the AI in the robot, in Andy, made him capable of lying, and apparently networking to Ash or whatever. But like I said, I don't necessarily agree with your characterization overall because it's a different film. Yes, it fits in between the other two, but it's not the same movie. And again, it's not of the same quality. I agree with you 100%. It's not up to the snuff as the same two films. I would never argue that. It's not a great film. Those other two films were great. This one's a good film. Yeah, go ahead.
I think that if you want to compare this film to something else, this film reminds me for this franchise what like Star Wars Rogue One was to the Star Wars franchise. Was it directly correlating with the old school, the original Star Wars trilogy? No, not until the very, very end. And so if you like something like Rogue One, I'd say that this is what Romulus is to Aliens, what that film was to Star Wars. And some people, I think most people are okay with Rogue One. I was okay with it. I thought it was pretty cool for what it was. Is it like on the level of the originals? Fuck no. But it was like that last like Star Wars film that wasn't like miserable. At least to me.
And
so
I never saw Rogue One, but I've kind of gotten that impression from people I trust, and maybe Alien Romulus will have a little niche, find its niche here in the Alien franchise. But I'm sorry, you can use the sort of start of the story to say, oh hey, this is something different, but then every time it introduces something, it's a retread from the franchise, and it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that per se, but there's really no traction to build on.
Okay, well,
it's sort of this ceaseless thriller that runs itself out all the way to the end.
Yeah, but
and every time it has an action set piece, again, it references old material and has no ideas of its own. So,
well,
that's what I would say personally.
It didn't dip into the girl boss trope because it talked about the auto aim system of the gun. I mean, there's a lot of things out there that it did do that it easily could have with a lot of modern audience bullshit in mind, right?
And to be fair,
but you judge a movie by what it is, not what it isn't. Right?
No, oh, indeed, I certainly wouldn't argue that. Yeah, no, but I will judge it by this might be the Attack of the Clones movie.
Fair enough. But I will say to the girl boss part, they didn't go into that. But at the same token, it's like doing that with Cailee as your lead would have been ridiculous anyway. And I don't think there would have been any way for them to sell that.
Some creators would have tried it. Some of these motherfuckers out here. And I'm not here to judge it by what it didn't do. But I will say that when it comes to just this film, generally speaking, I don't know, like it's doing something that horror films just aren't doing right now. It's actually trying to be horror. And I could appreciate that. And while I always have low expectations for everything, because that's just how I am these days. I'm so waned. Maybe that's why I can enjoy certain things a little bit more than, some other people. It's difficult. It's fucking hard to balance because there's a set of rules in Alien, at least from what the Aliens I've watched. You have to hold to those rules. It's not like you can suddenly deviate. Like the film would be lambasted for that. So that's a hard fucking that's a hard wire to walk where you have to fucking hold true to the rules. But how do you branch out too? Like that's a tough balance.
And just real quick here, the other problem with that too is that because of the time period that this movie is in, being in between the first one and the second one, they couldn't progress things to a level where it's like, well, if they introduced like a completely new mythology or a completely new like set of circumstances, people would have asked, well, then what was this in the second movie, right? Because none of this actually exists in that time frame. So the fact that if this was obviously like in a future setting, they could do essentially whatever they want, just make up some nonsense, or even what the Prometheus tried to do, go so far back in the past. If you make up your own lore, no one can really call you out on it. But because you're sandwiching this movie in between essentially a timeline of two other movies, there's only so much that you can get away with before you start like tripping over plot holes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know.
Well,
I'm trying to compare this to other films. I like this more than I liked Prey personally. You know that Predator film
Yeah,
that I
that
think
Prey
was
sucked.
fucking god
I'm
awful.
sorry.
Yeah, that fucking movie is dog shit, and nobody
Yeah.
will remember it 20 years from now. People be like, "Prey, huh? The fuck was that?"
I think I gave that
kind
like
of
a
like this one
2.5
more.
out of 5 on that one. If I'm being honest with you, I kind of have this one on the same level as Prey, and I might go with Prey over this one for the simple fact that Prey was a lot more simplified than this one was. Like this one, I think there was a lot of elements that you can cut out of this one. I don't think will overall like affect the movie, but I will say this. I think compared to the last one that I completely forgot, by the way, that the last movie was Covenant had Danny McBride and Justice Smollett in the movie, which is like, I just completely memory hold those two out of that
Jesus.
film like all together. So I only just remembered that. But in the course of like those films, I kind of put this one in the same level as Covenant. And to me, like I said, it's kind of a middle of the road film. There's not enough here for me to truly like hate this movie. So I didn't say that it's a bad movie. There's definitely plots on it that could have been done like far better. But because of that, I can't give it too much of an it either. To me, I thought that the setup was too slow and it took a little too long for it to start to get going. Now, when it got going, it did end up being pretty good there. I do like the arc with a few of the characters here. Cailee was pretty decent. Isabela's arc was decent, even though I don't think they explored it too much there because it was kind of more focused on the other two characters. Overall, for me, this one is kind of like right in the middle. I think I'm going to go with probably a 2.5 out of 5 with this film here. It depends on how hard of a mark you are of the Alien franchise. Some of you guys may love it more than others. Some of you guys may hate it more than others. I know last night with more hardcore Alien fans, it was kind of like in the mix here. Like I said, emotionally, there's just not too much here for me to go one way or another. So this is just a middle of the road film for me. So that's kind
Yeah.
of my rating.
No, that's fair because it's like it didn't do anything that was like, fuck this. Besides, the part where the synthetic
the scene
calls
where it's
Alien
like,
a bitch. That was the one thing that was like, oh, you should have just cut that one out. Like everything else seemed like, all right, this is decent, like pretty, clear cut. I'm pretty cool with whatever everything else going on. That one scene is disgusting to me, but everything else is like, okay, this is pretty cool. I'm vibing with it. I'm not upset with anything. I'm not floored either. It does sit kind of in that middle space. That's like, okay, I'm glad I got out of the house and I got to watch the film. And watching my friend's reaction, who's never seen any Alien film, and I almost, I pretty much on the line begged her to not go with me to see this because I knew
she was gonna ruin it.
No, that she was gonna be fucked up. Like she was like immediately after she walked out of it, my anxiety's through the roof. I'm like, bruh, I told you weren't gonna like this shit. You didn't have to come. She's like, but I didn't want you to go alone. It's like, bitch, I went to see Longlegs alone. What the fuck are we talking about here? So like that to me was entertaining.
Longlegs was good. Yeah,
Longlegs was a way better film.
Yeah, I loved Longlegs. I absolutely.
I think I'm the only person who hasn't seen it yet, but I'll
really.
Yeah.
Oh man, Cage is a genius. I keep trying to fight myself. My instinct is to say he can't play John Madden, but maybe he can.
And I have not been a fan of Nicolas Cage's a lot of his recent performances. This was a brand new Nicolas Cage performance, and I never thought I would say that.
I watch Wally's Wonderland again. I don't know.
But I just wanted to say this real quick. This might be fucked up. I'm sure none of you share this with me, but what's the pregnant chick's name?
Isabela. Who was her character's name?
When she fell, she wasn't watching where she was going. She was trying to escape the alien. I laughed out loud in the theater. I was like, holy shit.
I said like kind of louder than I should have. I'm like, dumb bitch.
Yes.
It was one of those like classic like horror movie segments where it's like everyone's just so freaked out, like logic just completely like deletes them, and then it's like like you literally had a shot at getting out there, but then you just happened to fall 15 feet to the ground and it hurt yourself.
She took a beating. Like she kept falling and it's like, I hope the baby's okay. And then of course you know what's gonna happen, obviously at some point. And then like when the bald chick who had the face hugger on her face, like kicks the lever of the ship and it goes flying. I'm sorry. That kind of shit, it just gets under my skin. I know it has to happen for the plot. Like I know it has to happen, like whatever. But it's just things like that seem very clumsy to me. And so again, it's just this whole movie kept interjecting stuff from past movies. And like again, on a certain level, you have to accept it, I guess, because movies are bad now or something. But I just had a lot of issues with this movie overall. But I kind of landed at about it like 2 out of 5. So
yeah, the one thing that kills me about this movie, besides bitch moment, right when the fucking synthetic didn't save her, like didn't open the fucking door, he would have immediately got deactivated, had his shit pulled. Like I don't fuck around with that kind of shit. Like that's the one thing I was like, why the fuck aren't they deactivating this motherfucker? Like, get the fuck out of here. Like,
because it's her brother.
Especially if you're the dude. Like, fuck that bitch. I would have backhanded her. Been like, fuck you, you dumb cunt. That's your fake ass brother, but my real sister got fucked up because of him. Fuck that.
I'm scared to tell Cassie to go see Resurrection because then she'll be like, okay, that shit was worse than Romulus. Just because it's like it came out in 1999 and I was 10, and I'm like, whatever.
All I remember is that Winona Ryder had a terrible haircut in that film. Sigourney Weaver looked like she was way too old to be in that role. Then like the black dude from CSI was also in that movie as well. Like it was
one
a cluster.
tempting thing about that film is like the part where Sigourney Weaver throws the basketball backhand and her having long hair. Like I really like her long hair in that movie, but I haven't brought myself to watch it. But I will say this. A lot of people told me a lot of things about Escape from LA, and for like decades I've like avoided that film. And then when I watched it, I was like, wow, I actually had fun with that. It's not nearly as good as the original, but I had a lot of fun watching it. I was pleasantly surprised. So you never know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how much money this movie makes. I think it made $6 million on preview night, because we're technically not done with Friday, so I don't have a tally here. But it made $6 million on preview, so it should make at least its production budget back. But it's got to make a lot more than that to actually turn a profit, and it really is going to depend on the word of mouth. From what I've heard, the word of mouth hasn't been like bad enough to like kill it like a Borderlands film does, but I'm not sure if it's hype enough to get people to actually repeat watch it, especially with everyone seemingly watching Deadpool and what was it, the Inside Out movie that we were talking about too. That seems to be the two that everyone keeps going back to at the moment.
I just want to remind you something.
Go ahead.
This is earning more than Borderlands.
Oh yeah, easily. Everything.
But right before you got here, we literally went. Harold and the Purple Crayon is outdrawing Borderlands right now. That movie is certified garbo. Certified garbo.
Oh, it was, the Purple Crayon one? Yeah, it's trash.
So Alien Romulus was projected for around like 30, 35, but they're saying it's doing well enough where it could go as high as 50. So if it has a $50 million weekend, that's pretty great. Considering they just had a $50 million weekend with that Blake Lively movie. So at least people are going to see stuff. There's always that.
Hey, the Blake Lively movie's tailing though now.
Oh, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's it total gross now is at 73 since open. But it tailed yesterday, only brought in 4. So
well, like I said, the negative PR regarding that movie, which we talked about earlier in the show with Blake Lively and Justin and the whole thing going on with them behind the scenes, probably has not helped this film at all. Like I said, Blake Lively, I think because she thinks that she's
great, though. I mean,
it did. It did, but like I said, I think Blake Lively is overestimating her own star power due to the fact that she's married to Ryan Reynolds and she's best friends with Taylor Swift. And to think that you can actually go over your director's head to make your own cut in the movie and still have it underperform the actual cut that we all saw in theaters is not a good look for her whatsoever. Nope. Especially as someone who hasn't acted in anything in like 4 years anyway. So yeah, it's bad.
Has she made anything even noteworthy? Like, I remember
we talked about it earlier.
I remember like the most boring fucking shark film that I ever seen in my life.
Shallows.
That's the only fucking shit that I've ever seen her in. So
We mentioned it. The only noteworthy film role she's really had was The Town. That's the only thing that I could think of. And then if you want to throw in that A Simple Favor movie, you can throw that in there too. Outside of that, if you look at her filmography, it's not great. But then again, I said the exact same thing about Ryan Reynolds. Remove the Deadpool movies out of Ryan Reynolds' filmography. He's not done anything great either.
He's just played Van Wilder for 20 years.
I like the Amityville horror movie. I don't care.
Yeah,
Especially when he's shirtless. Holy shit, brother.
I think Van Wilder, The Proposal with Sandra Bullock. I mean, I can go through.
I'll give him credit for Waiting. Like Waiting's a good movie.
Waiting was great.
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, like I said,
let me do this. Let me tell you what Blake Lively was in that was instrumental in her career. It was with Justin Long, and it's called Accepted.
Oh, she was in that. That's right. That was so long ago. It was 2009.
It was a long time ago.
Was it 2009? I think it was even earlier.
It was 2006. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was in high school when it came out, but I was like, wait, no.
Yeah, she was also in those sisterhood garbage films.
Oh, the Traveling Pants.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Jesus.
I mean, Cassie's favorite movie in the whole world.
With America Ferrara.
Look at her face. Look at Cassie's face.
These are movies that you couldn't pay me to watch. Just saying.
Cassie turns off all the lights in her house before she watches that movie.
Why I knew about it.
Are you good, dog? What the fuck? I don't even know the context of the film, but Traveling Pants and turning off all the lights sounds kind of awkward. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
It's basically a traveling vagina film. That's really what it is.
She really didn't have anything. I mean, look, didn't she? She did a horror film at one point, I thought. But anyway,
The Shallows.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, I mean, I just don't think she's ever done anything outstanding. So
No.
yeah. And didn't she meet Ryan Reynolds in a failed superhero film? What was that? Green
Lantern.
Green Lantern.
Yeah.
Like the only thing
the movie that
about
almost
them,
killed his career the first time.
Yeah. Well, you know what he says? Don't make the super suit animated next time, or whatever he said. I think that's why he insists on wearing the Deadpool costume for realsies.
Yeah.
So
I think that they really need to stop pushing buttons, because the main thing about Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively is that they come off as likable. And if you kind of step on toes with that, like, what more do you realistically have other than Deadpool?
Well, that's the problem with this beef with this guy, the co-star, right? What's his name?
Co-star and director, Justin Baldini.
Yeah, I mean, why are you fighting with the dude that made the movie that just like opened too high? I mean, I'm sorry, it overperformed in a way that I was like, what the flip?
And he's the only one who actually cares about the content of the film. Like, Lively hasn't put over anything regarding domestic violence or anything like that in her entire PR campaign for the movie.
But in interviews, Blake Lively's literally like get dressed up, get dressed up and get flowers and go to this movie. It's like, it's about domestic violence. And like,
it was
like, what do you?
I was being tongue in cheek. I don't think my audience thought. I was like, hey, go see this movie. It's a great rom-com.
Yeah, you're not really, especially go with your girlfriend. Go as a couple to go watch this movie.
I guarantee you, some of the people that watched me that day, because I may have said it a little too dry, probably were like, "Oh, date night." Oopsie. Sorry, guys. I apologize.
Yeah, if you laugh at any point in that movie in front of your girl, you will break up. I'm just letting you know. Don't fall for that trap.
Dude, you guys were just talking about that pregnant lady taking a spill. You guys are laughing out loud in the theater. What is wrong with you people?
That's right.
Absolutely. Those are sick motherfuckers.
Well, that's brings us to the end of tonight's show. Now, we will have a show next week. Next week, we'll be reviewing 2 movies. We'll be reviewing I guess we can call it the remake of The Crow, because that's a big film.
God, did you see that trailer?
Yes, I didn't want to, but yes, I did.
My condolences to you guys. I definitely will not be helping you all out with that.
And the second film we'll be reviewing next week is Blink Twice, as I like to call it, the Jeffrey Epstein movie.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's directed and written by Zoe Kravitz, which there's no way this movie's good.
No. And I think Cassie should be forced to review A Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants.
She should do it for her own channel.
No.
It's just like YA garbage. It's not like, it's just terrible.
I'll shut down the channel right the fuck now.
It was the beginning of
garbage.
It was the beginning of YA garbage. If you want to,
Right.
If you want to know when it started,
just like how
Twilight and that movie
And the Notebook.
Yeah.
and the Hunger Games and
Nicholas Sparks novels. Yeah.
just like this, the movie is basically Divergent with aliens. So same thing.
Also, I
Virgin
saw
with
that
aliens?
I saw that Walter Hill was a fucking producer on this movie. That guy is a producer on every single Alien movie because he's the one that brought the idea to Ridley Scott. So him and Dan O'Bannon. But yeah,
as long as someone's cutting you a check, just take the producer credits.
Hey, and I think that's why Nolan was not Nolan.
James Woods?
No.
Okay.
The Cameron. I think that's why James Cameron was all pissy this week about this movie because he didn't get his check.
Oh yeah, for the second one,
he didn't get his EP. So
didn't he offer some like thoughts on the film? You know,
yeah, I can tell you they were not taken.
Yeah, he was very lukewarm, kind of like he didn't trash it, but he didn't give his thumbs
he didn't
up
get
of
paid.
approval.
Yeah. He didn't get paid.
They took his notes, threw it in the toilet, and pissed on it. That's essentially what they did with this film.
I mean, modern Cameron sounds about where he belongs.
Yeah, well, yeah, when you come up with a wonderful Avatar series, Fire and Ash, we're going to go through all of the different elements of the environment. Yay!
But by the way, Razorfist, who just so conveniently brought Rob over here, made a point that, that was a film that came out a couple of years ago, made like $2.5 billion and got multiple award nominations, and literally no one ever talks about it. A lot of people forgot that it even came out, and I keep having to remind myself that, oh yeah, that was a film that for some reason absolutely blew up overseas, but here in the United States, even though it made a good chunk of money, it had like no cultural presence whatsoever. It's weird how that one just came and went.
Like the minute it came out of theaters, it was like 15 minutes past due. It's like, that's milk I ain't drinking again. And that's, I had a 3D television and I got offered a free copy of that thing, and I'm like, no, thank you.
I don't know how people like these fucking movies. It's so weird to me. I'll never understand.
Yeah, I don't know. Look, and like I said, Fire and Ash. So now we're gonna make the blue demons look like fire demons. Sweet.
Yay, blue demons. Woo. Definitely don't notice that as a trend in Hollywood. That's a future topic for the Bible Lens. But
hey, they're doing you saw they're doing a movie on Moloch, right?
I'm not surprised by anything anymore. If you guys recall, literally my last episode of the Bible Lens on Sunday, I talked about Hollywood's relationship with Freemasonry, and I'm pretty sure YouTube liked that because I slapped a label on my video. But outside of that, go check that one out because it's a very eye-opening origins there about the struggle that's going on in Hollywood for the last several decades. But go talk about that one. But outside of that, I will go ahead and shoot this one over to you guys because it's the time you get to promote anything you guys got coming up, and then we're going to start with the bearded man over here, Captain Caveman. What are you working on? What do you want people to know about? Riveting. Cassie, what do you have coming out?
Well, I will be doing my own review on Alien Romulus, so if you're interested in that, follow me on my my second YouTube channel, The Movie Cage. And I also have a bit of a hot take to shit on MCU stands because as an OG X-Men fan, I love the original trilogy as well as a couple of the films after that. There's definitely some dog shit in regards to Fox's X-Men for sure. But I'm coming to snatch wigs because fucking Marvel, Disney, and MCU dick eaters for over a decade were trashing all of these films just because they weren't a part of the MCU. It's all that fucking gaslighting. And so I was the one fighting in the trenches saying that, hey, I like the MCU. That was back when I did like it. But these films are also good films. And I was definitely throwing hands with people for a long time. So I'm coming home to tell y'all to go fuck yourselves for your fucking gaslighting, and that's going to be an interesting video. So that's been recorded. I just have to edit it. So yeah, that's what I got coming up. If anyone's interested in that.
Home,
I thought you were going to talk about the X-Men 97 dude who apparently was sending pictures of his junk, telling men how this is how I want Cyclops to look in the movie. It's like, why are you sending me pictures of your dick? Like, how's that?
I haven't watched X-Men 97 to even have an opinion on that, other than
Let's just put it this way: it makes a lot more sense knowing that context.
Yeah, but yeah, we aren't going to talk about that on the movie cage. But you're more than welcome to check out my channel for other things. I did a review on long legs and shit like that. So
you're not going to talk about throwing Wang at your employees when they didn't want it.
No, I definitely don't have one to do that. So.
No, that's what the whole DeMeo was doing over there at the X-Men thing. Yeah,
doesn't surprise me. He looks
apparently
like
he was
fuck that would.
Apparently, he was using his Wang as a puppet to explain how he wanted Wolverine to look in the cartoons. I mean, everyone does that, right? That's just normal. Rob, what do you got coming up?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Yeah, I have a podcast that I'm going to get back to some point, but there's a lot of topics I want to get to. And that's just Rob Motto Movies on YouTube, so check that out. Yeah, I try to get one out a week. It's not working out, but yeah, it's like once every 2 weeks, so that they come out periodically. And then I'm just trying to get some reviews done. I'm staying busy with that. You can follow me on my Twitter. That's about it. I'll get my shit together someday. Yep, check it out. Bye.
Someday.
Working a full-time job and doing YouTube is rough work, man. Holy shit.
Yeah. Why do you think I retired? Anyway, back to me. I guess
I could retire.
No, you don't. I'm working harder than I ever had in my life for far less money. I never should have quit running the. Anyway, so yeah, Jacob is always wrong. Just remember that. And you can find me at Culture Casino, where I have a channel that I do at least 7 live streams a week on my channel alone, not just guest appearances on other places. I also run that gaming place with Jonas J. Campbell, where we do at least 1 live stream and about 2 to 3 videos a day over there. I've been doing 2 to 3 videos a day on my channel, except for today and yesterday, because YouTube doesn't like me anymore. I have people attacking me, saying I use hate speech in my comments, and I'm like, I don't say hateful things ever. So okay, most of my stuff is, well, why do you think that? Well, thank you for watching. Anyway,
I don't use hate speech. I use mean speech.
I don't even use that. I don't need to. If you're dumb, you probably know it. Okay, you probably do. Anyway, check out Culture Casino on YouTube, The Green Machine, the X thing. I'm on Minds and Getter and lots of other stuff. Pretty soon I'm going to actually turn on my Instagram account so I can sell my merchandise from beachpunk.com. That's it.
Well, I don't have like a creative button like they do, like getting tossed out of that building, like the no ticket that Comics Division always does. But this is my equivalent of that.
Gentlemen, I want you to do me a favor. Remove this cracker from my show.
I'm a cracker?
I mean, that's what he said. I didn't say that, but he said that.
Oh.
Brits.
And then letting you guys know what I got coming up, because now this is my channel, so I should promote my own stuff. That'll be a good thing. So yeah, that review for Jackpot that I showed you guys, that'll be up on Bounding pretty soon, along with my review of Alien. So it'll be a bit of a catch-up weekend for me. I know I got a lot of reviews to catch up on, so I'll work on getting some written stuff up on the site as well. Sunday, I'll be back here on the Bible Lens, and we'll be talking about Paul's Gospel of the God's Grace, and we'll also be talking about pre-tribulation rapture. So we will surely upset some people on Sunday, and that is a good thing. Then coming up on Tuesday, we got another episode of the Barroom Podcast. If you guys haven't checked out our new intro that I created and crafted, go check that one out. Intro and outro. By the way, shout out to Cider for providing us the song for the outro for that song as well. And then next week we'll be talking about 2 movies, Blink Twice and The Crow. So those will be our movies for review. And then maybe Rick will be back or not. I mean, either or. It really doesn't matter. He's not that big of a part of the show anyway. But let's go ahead and give a quick little shout out to everyone who joined us here tonight. Vanya, Leslie Tarkin, DK, Maurice Jonsson for joining us here on the show tonight. the Kool-Aid Man for making a drive-by, Eddie Brock, obviously, Arthur, Eternal Cote. Who else do we have here? Tim Talk, Mephisto's Movie Reviews, who was here earlier, Amy for joining us here on tonight's show. All bunch of people who joined us on Rumble here tonight. Apparently, there was a lot of you guys who joined us on Rumble. Thank you very much for that as well. With that said, we're going to go ahead and hit our classic outro and get on out of here. So, adios, goodbye, and see you later. Deuces.
It's over. Go home.
Get the hell out! Get out! Get out! Get out!
Okay.
Get out! Get out!
You get the hell out!
Never mind who you thought I was. I'm Rick James, bitch.